Hello folks, welcome to this week course on project management. So we'll look into what is project is all about and why do we need to manage it and what are the different methodologies of management. So towards this, we'll use all the guidelines that are listed in the PMBOK guide. So we'll look into what this PMBOK means shortly. So now let us go into the course. So first thing, what is a project? There are different user-defined definitions for this project. Let us go by the standard definition. What do you intend to deliver in a project or intend to achieve in a project? Because this project is a widespread term that we keep on hearing on from different places and different circumstances that you are working on or supporting on. So we need to have a very clear understanding of what encompasses a project and what activities are not. So that clarity is what we'll try to build in now. So a project typically means a temporary endeavor undertaken so as to create unique products, services or results. So you can see a lot of emphasis have been given on the word temporary, unique products, services or result. So it means this project is not a continual one. It is a temporary activity that has been undertaken so as to obtain a specific set of targets. Those are either to create new products or a service or any target result. So that is what you call as a project. So as we see why this unique products or service or result is required. So there are many drivers to it. The first and foremost is the market demand to that service or a product. If the market calls for, because based on a demand, you are going to supply it. So whatever organization you placed in, you might be an electronics based organization or a mechanical based or an automotive based or a pharma based or even a banking based. So each and every sector caters to the market. It caters to the consumer who is going to generate the supply for that unique product. So your market demand is the first one that is going to drive this project. So always we must be very clear on what are the drivers of our project so that our project must cater to them, not to our individual requirements. Likewise, the next major demand is from the customer because the customer are the king in this current scenario. So you should not build a product that is good for you. You should build a product that is good for the customer and what he wants, not what we design. So this project should be focused on the customer request and whether the customer will get satisfied by that product or not. Next is the legal requirement that binds the development of a product. Suppose there might be a separate rule stating that a given product should cater a set of conditions so that it can be marketed and sold. Very good example that you all might be aware of in the automotive industry is that the emission norms that have been floating around. So it is a mass product change demanded by the legislation for which all the automotive industry and supplier ancillary industries have to adhere to. So by variation of this legal requirement, it calls for variation of products and that again will constitute a separate project on its own. So next, any specific organization need. The second point that we have, suppose based on the customer request that I've already mapped internally to your organization, you want to deliver a differentiated product. So that is terms of product. But there can also be situations that can demand an internal service requirement. So within an organization, which might not have a direct impact on the customer or the market or the legal, but for an internal effectiveness or functioning of the organization, you have to launch a new project. So that project can target a service or a result. So that can be termed as an organization need for a project. So based on these needs, now we have to understand what this project is versus an operation, because typically people will get confused between these two terms or they are being used interchangeably between each other but they have very clear demarcation between them. So first and foremost, the operation is going to be used to sustain the business. So it means that all the activities that are being performed on a day-to-day basis in case of repetitive activity or all those things that are used as a normal business functionality will be termed as an operation. So it means that it is a continuous cycle. Whereas a project is one that is created to attain a specific objective, and once that objective is attained, it will get terminated and then it will move on to the operation stage. So for example, if you have created a product, say let it be a cell phone. So the project objective is that to create a cell phone of say 5.5 inch with so many specs and catering to a particular market, say the Z market or the millennium market. That is the people who are going to use the cell phone. So you have launched the project internally with that specific objective in mind, that is to deliver a millennium targeting cellular phone. So for that you have made the design, you have made the drawings and all those things, and then now it gets processed to the manufacturing team. The manufacturing team now operates on this design and keeps on producing them. So that will serve as the business revenue stream for you. So this is the operational part of the project. Next is it requires a semi-permanent charter, organization and goals for an operation. The detailing of charter will look slowly in the upcoming slides. But to put it simple, those are some terms and regulations that are being understood and agreed upon by the stakeholders with defined targets and the responsibilities, and this also have to be put in for an operation in place, but they are kind of semi-permanent because they tend to get modified based on the operational needs. But whereas for a project, it is unique. The charter is unique for different projects and for different goals and for different organization. So this will touch upon in the charter segment when we touch upon, but the main objective is that for an operation, it is kind of a semi-permanent. That is, it won't change unless it is needed for. Suppose only if there are any major operational organization changes that call for it, you will modify the charter. But apart from that, it's going to stay good until the product stays on the line. Whereas a project, for individual project, there's going to be individual, unique, customized charter for a specific target or goals. So that is how it's going to be different in terms of the goal settings. Next, an operation will try to maintain a status quo. As said in the previous 2 points, it's not going to change much. It's going to stay active and a continual process. Whereas a project will drive the change. It will act as a catalyst for the change, because this will ensure that you're not no longer heading the same direction, but you're either taking a strategical redirection or a new path. So this project is going to be a catalyst for that change. So next, an operation is going to operate upon a standard or a delivered product or services. So that is an established line upon which you have to work upon. So that is going to get an operation. Whereas in project, you create those unique product or services. So that's the difference between slow. So by this understanding, you need to differentiate between the various tasks that you see on a day-to-day basis. See, suppose if you are going to cook, and the everyday cooking will term as an operation for you. Even the buying the materials, all those things are a repetitive task periodically. So that is an operation. Whereas if you're preparing some seasonal delicate such as an cake or something, so that can be termed as a project because you have a specific goal. You're not cooking for one of the duration. That is, you're not going to cook either for a breakfast or something, but you're going to take it as a delicacy, so that you have to focus on separately apart from the general operation. So maybe you can say that I don't want to have breakfast today, but let me focus on this. So what you're doing is you're setting aside a separate target that you have to bake a cake, and towards that you buy specific ingredients to it, because normally we won't be using much of the ingredients on a day-to-day basis. So For creating the cake, you have to set out a project charter. That's an internal charter because you will decide that you need to buy these things, you need to do these things in activity, and maybe you might not have tried it at all. So this is your first time. So you have to formulate the sequence of activities that you have to do. You have to do a lot of research, going into so many YouTube videos or so, and then build it out and get the final thing that you want. Maybe once you are very familiar with it and you're going to do it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, then that established project will become an operation. So I hope you can differentiate between these two terminologies. And next thing is, for an operation, the team members consisted will be targeting almost similar line of work. So it means that they are homogeneous in nature. There are no differences or unique skill sets required in the majority of the operation. So they all constitute a single team targeting for a single objective. Whereas a project is going to be heterogeneous. You bring in personnel from different strata. You bring in from finance, you bring in from product management, you bring in from service, you bring in from production. You bring all the stakeholders together to drive the project to fruition. So this is the heterogeneous team formation document. So this is an obvious mandatory requirement to have a successful project. You need to make sure that your team stays heterogeneous. It should contain different flavors so that you can make sure that all the key factors behind the project objectives can be catered to. And finally, an operation, as said earlier, is going to be an ongoing continual process, whereas a project is going to have a linear operation. That is, it has a well-defined start and a well-defined end within which it will get completed. Between the process, there can be several iterational one, but we have a clear start and an end date which opens and closes the project and sign it off completely. So this is the major difference between a project and an operation that we all need to be very clear of. So next we look into what is project management. Managing a project has different requirements to it. It's not a single faced object and it's a role altogether. So we'll see what are the drivers of this project management are. The first thing is it is the application of the processes, knowledge, skills, and experience so as to achieve the project objectives. So let us look into the keywords very clearly. The application of the processes that call for managing the project and specific knowledge sets that are applied for this and several skill sets or tools that are required to apply so as to continue the project objectives and the different experiences that we have gained in the previous projects to carry over here or different risks that we need to take on those in terms of risk management and all those things, those kind of experience that we need to cater so that we can achieve the project objective. So this is what a project management is all about. It might look very simple, very direct, but it has very deep meaning to it. So a project success will depend on whether you have met the scope of the project, its timeline, and also its cost goals. Because almost most of the projects will exceed your scope of the project. That is, it might not be able to meet the preset targets that was kept, or it might not be able to meet the timelines. It might get extended, or it might overshoot the cost of the project. So these are several day-to-day project happenings that I have occurring. So this is where a project manager will be very useful in critical in making sure that the project stays successful in meeting the scope, time, and the cost goals. And also, the project success can also be attributed how well your customer is going to satisfy. Because a happy customer is will make sure that your pockets will stay full. The company will get revenue out of your customers only because even though you have a wonderful product, if the customers are not willing to buy it, then there's no use in having a product. So the project must ensure that it sticks to its scope, time, and cost goals so that it gets delivered to customer at the prompt time, beating the market competition, and also staying as cheap as possible so that the customer will get a good a return on investment. So once decide on this project and the management scope, there are several project constraints that you'll face in during the course of the project. So we'll see what are those. So there are three pillars to it. So as we saw earlier, we have the scope constraint, the cost constraint, and the time constraint. But within which you have to balance the quality of the project, the resources that you have in hand, and the risk that might come in. So by balancing all these, you have to deliver the design target objectives. So this is what the project will call for. So next, having spoken about a project, there is the next terminology that comes in, that is a program. So what a program does is, it groups related projects, subsidiary programs, and program activities that can be managed in a coordinated way so that the benefits and control can be available together and instead of managing them individually. So put it in simple terms, the related set of projects and activities can be grouped together so that one learning can be taken forward to other, or one resources can be shared with the other project on similar kind of workplace, so that the benefits and control can be strictly maintained to all the related projects and it may not be wasted upon by focusing them individually. So that is what this program means. So to put it in another classical example, you are a biscuit manufacturing company and the program of putting out printed biscuits, that is with shapes, that can be driven as a combination of different projects, but this have to have its own differentiation. A program means it is related project. So you cannot take a normal biscuit and a cream biscuit together in your program stream. So typically saying that as it calls for differentiated process and differentiated learnings, it might not be prudent to keep those together. But whereas if we have the same baking machine and the same packing machine that can be used for two different products, then you can group it as a separate program. So that is what this calls for. A program will go for related projects wherein they can be managed together and all the benefits that are available by managing them on a whole that can be taken is called as a program. And this program management will focus on the interdependency of the project and always try to describe and attain the best approach so as to achieve the program objectives. So this program will ensure that we have sufficient interdependencies to leverage so that they can be targeted together to attain the program objectives. So next comes the portfolio. So in portfolio, what we do is we have a collection of the projects, programs, subsidiary portfolios, and operations managed together to achieve strategic objectives. So, quoting the earlier example of the biscuit manufacturing company, now the business manufacturing as a whole is a portfolio that needs to be managed by the top management, where they have to foresee different projects. They have to foresee the manufacturing, the packaging, the designing, the marketing, everything, all are separate projects and programs that needs to be put together in a single umbrella, and that is called as a portfolio, so that your overall strategic objectives are met. So that is the portfolio. So what we are seeing as a project, programs, and portfolio means that we are clearly defining or breaking down the bigger picture into intermediate and smaller picture so that they can be managed. So speaking about management, we can see what are the different varied categories that have to be looked into within a project, a program, or a portfolios. So in terms of scope, when we're seeing projects on the smaller level, they have defined objectives and the scope will get modified or updated based on the activities that are carried out in the project life cycle. In a program, as we said, it's having a larger scope than the project because it encompasses similar interdependent projects. and it will deliver major benefits rather than handling a project individually. The combined benefit is always greater than the sum benefits of the individual projects. Whereas in portfolios, they have a even broader scope in a business level scope, so that whatever small strategic redirection that are taking place in the portfolio levels will obviously affect all the scopes that are defined in a project. So to put it in other words, you're in a project that targets to a specific customer and specific area that you're working on. Suppose if the top management takes a decision that, okay, so this is not an area that we need to be considering the current scenarios or the current marketing. So it's better to take a risk and come out of this so that we can focus on our core area. So that can be a strategic realignment in the portfolio level that will call for modification of the project or scrapping it off fully. So why we are speaking about all this is that we have to have a very clear understanding of where our work lies in, what are the dependencies of our work, and the impact of our work. So obviously, if you are a part of a project that can have a very high impact on the functioning of your organization, then that will get traveled upon in either all of the programs or the portfolio. So obviously all the projects are important, but your company can drive a lot from your projects.